Good evening, welcome, thanks for coming out. Just a couple of updates, missions related. Last year's Faith Promise came in rated 100%, and so praise God for that, actually 100%.3. This morning, or beginning this year's Faith Promise, we needed $191 a week to be fully funded, and my faith got rebuked. We had $250 a week pledged. And so hallelujah for that. We are $60 a week over what we need. And so it just pleases God when his people attempt to connect people in truth. And so, thank you for being part of that. Hey, we're going to Argentina. Had a great morning with the Morales. We just really appreciate you folks being with us. We're glad that we can partner with you and you're part of our missionary family. So James, come and share with you for us tonight.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you here once again this evening. I love that the fact that you're all together. That's a blessing. We have been in Argentina for 8 years, and that's been a huge blessing for us. I want to share a little bit with you this evening. We're going to have a slide presentation. We'll also have a video for you. Do I need to turn this on? Nope, I'm good. Okay, thank you. And I'm going to introduce my family to you. Donnell, Sheldon, Matthias, Sophia, and Josie. The two oldest are in college, Hannah and Jamie. You may have seen from our prayer letters, Hannah went to Indonesia this summer and had a wonderful time investigating the opportunities that were there for Bible translation. Indonesia is one of the countries that has the highest number of Muslims in the world, and yet there are many different languages that still do not have the Bible translated as well. And so she was looking at those possibilities, very excited and interested to see what the Lord is going to be doing there. Jamie is looking at an opportunity to go down to Mexico in January, and so we're praying for that, praying for the opportunities that she has there. The plan is to go down to work with the Jewish people in Mexico, so we're praying for her for that, and that is, she just made that decision, so there'll be some more information forthcoming about that trip coming up. How did we get started? That's a very good question. How did we get down to Argentina? It started for me back when I was attending a youth camp. I sensed the Lord leading me to answer his call to serve him wherever, whenever, and however he wanted. And so I answered that call, and that was my senior year in high school. Actually, right after my senior year, right before I went to college, and so I changed my major in college and entered the missions program. Went on several different missions trips throughout college. On one of those mission trips, I met my lovely wife, Donnell. And so that's how we got started, was on a missions trip together. And how apropos that the Lord would be leading us into full-time ministry. And so after getting married, and I had already graduated, and Donnell had a couple more years left of school. The college invited me back to teach in their program, went to teach in the program, also led mission trips, most of which down to Mexico. And after 3 years, the college closed that program. And we decided to move back to Maine. We moved into Bowdoin. We started going to Cornerstone Baptist Church in Topsom, got involved with the ministry there, and started a construction business. And after about 5 years, sensed the Lord leading us into full-time ministry once again. And so we answered that call and went on a survey trip down to Argentina, Uruguay, and sensed the Lord leading us to the country of Argentina, specifically with the camp ministry there. What are we doing there? I have the clicker. I was going to have you guys start the slides, but I have the clicker. I love it when they give me the power. There we go. What are we doing in Argentina? We are fulfilling the Great Commission. The Great Commission is not merely for missionaries, not merely for pastors. The Great Commission is for all believers. And Jesus said, can you read that? No. Everybody want to move up front? No. You know the verse. Go ye therefore and teach all nations. I'm sorry, I can't read it. Teach all nations, baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the age. And that's what we're doing in Argentina. And he has sent us out. You shall be my witnesses unto me in Judea and Samaria, in Jerusalem, and to the uttermost parts of the world. I said that backwards. But he has sent us out. And each one of us has a mission. Each one of us has a calling to serve the Lord in discipleship, to serve the Lord in the ministry, in reaching the lost for Christ. And that could be in your own community, that could be in your school, that could be in your workplace. But the Lord has called each one of us to go out, and he has called us to go into Argentina. But as we see in the New Testament, we see the work of the apostles. We see Peter, and we see Paul, we see Barnabas being sent out to do the ministry. But we see in Acts 13 that they were ministering to the Lord in their church, and God told them to set aside Paul and Barnabas for the work of the ministry that he had called them to. That work was in church planting, evangelism, teaching, preaching, in appointing leaders in the churches, and establishing those churches. Argentina is a country about one-third the size of the United States. It is full of vast resources, a lot of farmland. You may know of Argentina from its beef. Argentina is world-renowned for its beef production. Also has marvelous natural resources and many cathedrals, because Argentina is primarily a Catholic nation. Interesting, when we went down to Argentina, there were about 92% of the nation claimed to be Catholic. Today, that number has dropped significantly and is now about 63%. And we're seeing the secularization of the country of Argentina as they're moving away from a religion. You see here that we have 63% Catholic, 15% evangelical, and of that 15% evangelical, 13% is Pentecostal, and 2% would be other, including biblically sound churches. And so a very small percentage of Argentines would claim or would go to a biblically sound church. Interesting thing on the Catholic side, as they're moving away from Catholicism, we see that, but I was actually surprised to discover this statistic that it has gone so much, down to 63%. But there is a disdain, a growing disdain towards the Catholic Church. Part of that is because Francisco is the Pope, the new Pope, is from Argentina. And when he was appointed as Pope, the Argentines expected him to bring prosperity. They expected him to increase the church in Argentina. And yet he has only been back to Argentina once in his entire time as being a Pope. And so the people are, I can't think of the word. It's one of the challenges in coming back to English. As I've lost some of my English. They are, I can't think of it. I can't think of anything. Disillusion, thank you. That was the word. Marvelous. The people are a bit disillusioned by that fact, and so that was an interesting statistic to find. So we see the growth of the Pentecostalism within the Latin Americans. They tend to be an emotional people, and so the Pentecostalism is something that appeals to their senses. And a little bit more on that in just a minute. But how shall they know? How shall they believe in him in whom they have not believed? How shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And God has called us to go to Argentina to preach that message. Again, you see our family here, and it got cut off. You see our family before we left. You see Sophia in arms there. That was a long time ago. You see the growth of our family. But God led us, as we were serving within our local church, and God led us out into the mission field. Back down to Argentina, we are in Chivilcoy. You see that red dot there. Chivilcoy is on the Pampas. It is primarily farmland, and yet the city of Chivilcoy is a city of about 70,000 people. And so a ripe mission field there. What are we doing? We're doing church planting. Church planting is what we focus on within Gospel Mission of South America. Each one of us has a different aspect of that. Our primary aspect is in the area of camp ministry, while assisting with the church planting that is taking place in Chivilcoy, and discipleship, preaching the word, teaching God's word, training leaders to then be appointed in the churches. Where are we today in the city of Chivilcoy? By God's grace, just last week the church voted to accept a new pastor in the church. He is a national pastor, and so we're thankful for that. We're thankful for how God has worked there. And also our other side of the ministry is within the camp ministry. And the camp ministry is primarily used as a tool for edification of the church and also for evangelistic purposes. And so the camp ministry, we have kids camps, teen camps, retreats, and family camps. There we go. We are coming into the summer season down there. It's the opposite of our season up here. And so we are just now getting started up again after COVID. This summer will be our first summer in 3 years. So we're thankful for the opportunity to have camp again, but it has been a huge challenge for us to be able to conduct any ministry out at camp. We had our first men's retreat in April of this year, and so we're really just getting rolling again. We also having conferences and retreats that take place throughout the year, and a winter camp for the teens in the winter time. Our winter season is not like the winter down here. Winter in Argentina is much milder, and the school break time is only 2 weeks. They have 2 weeks off, and so one of those weeks we utilize for camp. What's the goal? The goal is planting churches that plant churches. It's exciting to see what God is doing down there. We see the growth of Pentecostalism in Argentina, and yet we see, are starting to see a shift from those churches into biblically sound churches. And we started to see that taking place during COVID. That was one of the blessings that we found during COVID, as churches had a greater online presence. People were listening to preachers teach the Word. Preachers like Paul Washer, preachers like John MacArthur, and many other churches that were putting their messages online. As a result of that, there are many people that are seeing that the church that they have been going to is preaching false doctrine. And so we're seeing an influx into our churches from those Pentecostal churches because they're studying the Word and they're understanding the false doctrine that is being taught within their own churches. This morning I shared with you about Germán. Germán is in the Patagonia region of Argentina. He was saved in a Pentecostal church through the study of God's Word, discovered that his church was teaching false doctrine, began to look for churches that were teaching the truth. And he discovered a church 300 miles away. And the question is, what do you do in that situation? And he was planning to move his family, uproot his life, and move to where that church was. He got in contact with the pastor, and the pastor said, whoa, 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 whoa. How about you just stay where you are? I will come to you. And so the pastor would go on a regular basis, drive 6 hours, hold a Bible study in their home, and also got other pastors that were about 150 miles away, both from Chile and also further south in Argentina. Got other pastors to come and to begin filling the pulpit. Fast forward, Germán was just ordained this past year and is now the pastor of that church. And so a new church has been planted. And we are thankful for what God is doing there. We are seeing that in a variety of different churches. Just 40 minutes away from where we are is the town of Bragado. We have a missionary couple there, Colby and Lisa Holmes. Are you familiar with Colby and Lisa Holmes? Anybody here? Yes, very good. Colby and Lisa Colby is from Maine, actually grew up in Argentina. They are planting a church in Bragado. He was contacted by a group of believers from Nueve de Julio, which is another 40 minutes the other direction, who have been meeting in their home for the past 7 years as they moved away from the Pentecostal church. And there is no pastor. There's nobody to pastor them. No church nearby. They were traveling 2 hours once a month to go to a church service. Other than that, they were doing Bible studies in their homes. And they found out that he was just 45 minutes away and got in contact with him, said, will you be willing to come and to be our pastor? He said, well, God's called me to plant a church here in Bragado, but I'll come to you. And so he started with them. And meanwhile, passing out tracts in Bragado without any fruit for about a year. And then COVID hit, and that was the end of that. But during COVID, he got in contact with another group that, again, said the same thing. During COVID, they discovered that their church was not biblically sound. And so they searched through the Christian radio station, who got in contact with another pastor, who got in contact with this pastor, who then were able to get together and discover that there was a pastor planting a church within their own town. And so 2 churches born basically overnight by God's grace. That is the work of God. That's not the work of man, that's the work of God. And he is accomplishing his work in Argentina. And it's a blessing to be a part of that. So we're going to show you a video now, and then my wife's going to come up and share.
I've I don't have a mic. Oh, I do, actually, that's not on me. Wow. So, this morning, Pastor said, God is not concerned about our comfort, but our character. And I wrote that down, and I feel like that is, well, we all know that's true, because we like to have things that are comfortable. You know, when you get into your van, you like it to work, and when you put a load of wash in your washing machine, you want it to work, and when you are at home, you aren't expecting to go to the hospital. You know, those are inconveniences. But God is more concerned about our character than our comfort. And the Lord taught me a lot of things the last 8 years. And James has given me 5 minutes to speak, and so I'm going to go fast. But I really could share a lot of things about what has happened in the last 8 years. And he's changed me, and he's forming me through trials into his image. And they're hard. The trials aren't easy. I don't like trials. In fact, before, it's a long time. It was a long time that I would read James chapter 1, verse 2. And when I read, oh, I didn't bring my glasses up. It's okay. It says, "Consider all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." And I was always puzzled, consider it all joy when you encounter various trials. And I guess I always considered trials much bigger, but really trials are inconveniences too, things that are challenges that throw a curveball. Maybe you call it a curveball. Our pastor used to call things, we'd get curveballs. And the things that I listed were real things that happened to our family. But when we first got down to Argentina, every month something happened. We went to the hospital, well, I don't know how many times, 5, 6, 7 times. 7 times we went to the hospital with Matthias. And one of the times he fell, we had a spiral staircase, and he wasn't running down. I don't know what happened, but he fell. He fell high onto tiles, were they tile floors? And it was very scary. He hit his head on the ground, and I remember just holding him, and I think I had one of the kids call James, and I was praying that the Lord would spare him and show mercy, and that he wouldn't have brain damage. It's a real possibility. And that's just one thing. And so James went to the hospital and took care of that, stayed overnight, did all these tests. We weren't planning on going to the hospital that day. You know, we had van problems, a lot of van problems. Those were inconveniences. Washing machine, it came to be a joke among the missionaries about the washing machine not working because it was just all the time. And you know, it's not, in the big scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. But in the moment when you like your clothes washed, it's handy to have a washing machine, you know. And I had to deal with my attitude with the washing machine not working and me washing the clothes in the what do you call it, the bathtub, you know. Buying groceries was a trial. I could speak the language, but not well. And then talking to somebody about cuts of meat that were different than what I'm used to. And the way they do things down there is just different. It's just different. And so I would leave the store either with nothing or with a piece of meat that I wasn't really sure what it was. And I ended up just crying and just saying, yes, I'll take whatever you want me to give me, and we'll eat it. And they're frustrated. He has his business. He just wants to sell me meat, you know, and 5 other people behind me. And he can't understand me, and I can't understand him. They're just trials. It's not a major thing, and it wasn't forever, but it's a trial. And it was a way that the Lord used and pressed and fine-tuned me to make me more like him. And lots of pressure, like making when a diamond is cut and polished, and just the pressure, lots of pressure and heat. I don't really know how it works, but I've heard that there's lots of pressure and heat. And God's goal is to make us more like Christ. And that comes through trials. And sometimes, not always, but I think, what is he doing? Why am I here? Why is it so hard? He's accomplishing his purpose in my life. And it just means that I have rough edges that I need to be smoothed off. And it's all of it's for my good and his glory. Thankfully that nothing lasting happened with Matthias, though sometimes I think, no, I'm just kidding. Our van works, and there's mechanics down there, and the wash machine. We have water to wash the clothes, and they're not huge things, but in the moment, it's a mountain. And I think I went over my 5 minutes. Anyway, that's just a synopsis of just a little bit of my experience down in Argentina, 8 years into, 6 minutes.
I guess I should have given you 8 minutes. A minute per year. What Donnell is describing a little bit is our first couple years down there were very hard. And we get the sense that we were entering into the devil's playground. He didn't like it. There are things that are just part of life. Your car breaks down. Life just happens. But those first 2 years in particular, we saw that opposition. And we have never had a vehicle break down so much in our lives. We have never had a single appliance stop working. We have never been to the hospital that many times, let alone in 1 year. And we sensed that opposition. We experienced that, and we know it was because we were entering into the devil's playground. He didn't like it. Many missionaries wash out the first term, and the devil knows that. And so we trusted the Lord that he was doing the work within us. We are aware that this is what's taking place, that we are experiencing hardships, and that those trials, those hardships were producing endurance within us, producing more faith within us, producing more trust in the Lord. And we thank the Lord for that. Looking back, we're thankful. In the moment, there were real struggles that we face. But those struggles came to an end. After a couple years, things smoothed out, and we settled in, and we were able to accomplish the work of the ministry. And you see where we are today. The camp ministry is, for all purposes, it is fully functioning. Right now, you see there are 2 buildings on the side of camp. Those are the camp cabins. Each one of those will house about 60 campers, so a total of 120 campers is what we can house at camp right now, and we fill it, and we're thankful for that. We're thankful for God's blessings in bringing campers and completing the construction phase of that ministry there, and we're excited to see what lies ahead. And so the church ministry has in Chihuahua is fully functioning. We have a national pastor in place. We have the camp ministry that is fully functioning, and we are looking at developing leadership there to have a national put in place there, and so things are coming together, and we're anticipating where the Lord has or what the Lord has for us next in that. We're anticipating going down for another time period. We're not sure how long that's going to be. I ventured to say before we left we were going down for 4 to 5 years, and it ended up being 8 years. But God has His plans, and we know that His plans are perfect, and so we're just anticipating and waiting for the Lord's direction on that. And there are many opportunities all across Argentina. As I shared with you, man had to travel 300 miles, or was going to travel 300 miles to go to a biblically sound church. There are cities all over Argentina that are just waiting for a church to be planted. And I would challenge you, challenge especially young people, as you're seeking the Lord in His desire for your life, to leave those doors open, to be willing to go where the Lord would have you to go, to be willing to serve the Lord in whatever capacity He would have you to do it and whenever He would have you to do that. That was the call that I answered when I was 18 years old, and I would challenge you to do the same. COVID in Argentina was a challenge. It was a challenge for us. I think it was probably harder there than it was here, and looking and talking with people in terms of how long things were shut down. We were shut down from March until December. We first had our first church service outside with just 10 people, and then things began to open up slowly from there, and we were about full capacity in the church just about, well, no, it was about a year ago. It was about a year ago that we were full capacity now. We're in November now. But that was hard. That was challenging. But as I said before, it was not only challenging, it was also a blessing, because we saw God working in people. We saw God drawing people unto Himself, and many people who were in churches that were not biblically sound then moved over to churches that are biblically sound. And so we do see God's hand at work even through those adverse times, and they are blessings for us. Mate is an opportunity for us in Argentina. I think you've probably seen this before, but just as a review, mate is an herbal tea drink. It has a straw in it with a filter at the bottom so that the herbs don't come up through. Well, you put the herbs in the cup and then put in hot water and then sip the tea through the straw. This is an opportunity for us to develop relationships with people. It's an opportunity for us to get to know people more. We will have mate. I go regularly to first time you've seen one. Well, here you go. This is it. Taisher. Yeah. Workshop. I go regularly to workshops or places of business, and during their regular business hours, I try to find time when they're going to be on break, and go in and have mate with them. It's an opportunity for us to build relationships with people. And so mate is one of the tools that we have during COVID. That all went away. We saw a shift in the culture. The greeting in Argentina is a kiss on the cheek. That has pretty much gone away. It's starting to come back again with some people, but it's a little more informal, a little more formal now. Maybe a handshake or possibly a fist pump. That's very slow in coming back. So some challenges there, but also blessings along the way. So I will open it up to questions. Any questions that you have for us? Yes?
Down there, do you know if they have inflation problems like we have here, or is it?
No. No, it's much worse. It's much worse. How much worse? I have not seen the inflation below 25% in Argentina. We live with 30% inflation on a regular basis. In fact, as we signed our rental leases, it was written into the contract. You sign a 2-year lease or a 3-year lease, the rent goes up 30% every year. That's guaranteed. This last couple of years, inflation was just over 50%, 53, 54%. The inflation rate currently this month in Argentina is 83%. So yeah, we deal with inflation. It's a big deal. It's a way of life. And the people learn to live with it. We are learning to live with it. But absolutely, that's one of the challenges we have. Yep. Other questions? Yeah, Brian.
When you mentioned that people were listening to other speakers, was that through English, or was those translated sermons that they were listening to?
They were in Spanish. For instance, Paul Washer. Paul Washer preaches in Spanish. John MacArthur, he doesn't preach himself in Spanish, but he has somebody else that does the translation. And it's as if it were John MacArthur. So yeah, they're translated messages and also in the Spanish language. We have BBN is a radio radio station, yeah, thank you, broadcast network around the world, and they have Christian broadcasting in many different languages. In Argentina, we have it in Spanish. It's based in Buenos Aires, and they do a lot of preaching online through BBN. Okay. Other questions? Yes.
How is your support, how is inflation eating into that?
That is a complex question. But we can reduce it down a little bit. Our support is about 75% where we are right now. How inflation ties in with that, it goes hand in hand with the exchange rate. The exchange rate from the US dollar to the pesos. That exchange rate is constantly changing, and it rarely goes down in terms of pesos per dollar. It is always going up. And so we see the inflation. The inflation makes our expenses go up, and then there's a change in the exchange rate, and our expenses come down because we get more pesos for the dollar. And so we're constantly dealing with these waves of ups and downs. But we've seen it balance out. Right now, where we are with exchange rate, and with the cost of inflation, we're still getting good value for the U.S. dollar. When we first went down, a kilo of bread was 15 pesos. It was also 15 pesos to the dollar on the exchange rate. So it was about $1 for a kilo of bread. Today, a kilo of bread is 285 pesos. And the exchange rate on dollars to pesos is about 300. So again, we're looking at about $1 for a kilo of bread. So we've seen that all along in our 8 years. It goes up and down, but it it's kind of balances out for us. Yep. Yes.
So poverty must be fairly rampant with a high inflation rate.
Poverty,
Jobs
yeah.
aren't paying a salary or an hourly rate to keep up with inflation and that.
It's a challenge. I don't completely understand it, because what we do see is yes, poverty is rampant. We also have the social programs that keep people fed. Also, businesses tend to give wage increases. They give wage increases every year. That's just written in. And it's fairly close to what the inflation rate is. And some businesses will give raises every 6 months, depending on what the inflation rate is. I don't understand how they can do that. The price of goods goes up, the price of salaries goes up, everything's going up. It's just climbing. And there doesn't seem like there's a way of escape in that. Yeah. It's a big challenge. Anything else?
What do you mean most hostility with? What is against you, I guess? Is it government, is it locals, other sects?
The greatest, from a ministry standpoint, our greatest opposition is really in stuff. And it's just things happening. Within the opposition of, I would say, evangelism and witnessing to people, is not necessarily opposition as it is a challenge. The challenge is with the predominantly Catholic nation is, as we are talking to people, we're sharing the gospel, they completely agree with what we're sharing with them. Yes, 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 yes. And I pray every morning, and yes, I read the Bible, and it's the challenge is breaking through that wall of, no, we're not saying the same thing, and sharing with them the truth from God's word. That's the biggest challenge that I would say we face. As far as from an opposition standpoint, we don't really face much opposition in terms of governmental opposition. We are still pretty free to do and to minister. In fact, during COVID, we had a special stipulation. I was given, everything was locked down. You got to understand, everything was locked down. We were allowed to go to the grocery store. There were curfews. We had to be in by 6 o'clock at night, because apparently COVID spreads faster at night. I don't know. And so we had these curfews, and we watched a guy get arrested right out in front of our house because it was 6:15 and he missed the curfew. And so things were locked down pretty tight. However, they gave permission to pastors to travel and to go to meet the needs of the people, because they considered that to be an essential service. And so I had, on my phone, I had a special permission granted to me that I could travel around and I could go and visit with people. And so they saw that need. Now, I will say that was I want to say propagated, but no. That was pushed. That was being pushed or brought to the government's attention by the Catholic Church. But it was something that we benefited from, as we all got permission for that. Yep. Yes.
So do you, obviously the language of Argentina is, I'm assuming, Spanish.
Yes.
Is any English spoken, or is it Spanish?
They will learn English from elementary school. Most of the Argentines have had some English. And so we do have people that will talk English with us. It's a different English. They learn the English from England, and so it's just slightly different. But we do notice a difference in that. And so there are some that would want to talk English with us. There are English schools around town also. So, yeah.
So what would you say in a day? 50-50 English or
No.
Spanish? Or
No. No, not even.
10?
Not even. No, there are days that we go without speaking English at all. It is Spanish, and the only ones that we talk English with are the ones that have said, "Oh yes, I know English," and they want to practice with us, because for them English is a trade language. It is a vacations, tourism is huge in Argentina. We are amazed at the places people go on the minimal salaries that they have, but it's something that means a lot to them. I was talking with a guy in Chile He's Chilean, and he married an Argentine, and so they have family on both sides of the border. The Chileans value material possessions, the new car, the house, those things. The Argentines value the tourism, the vacation side of things, and so he sees that on both things. So we have friends, they've gone to Turkey, they've gone to Indonesia, they travel regularly to Italy, to Spain, travel all over the place, but English is their language of choice because it gives them more freedom to go where they want to go. Yeah.
So do you find that you speak Spanish in your own home?
We do not. We have enough miscommunication in English, let alone Spanish. I don't know about your home, but no, if we have visitors in the home, yes, we speak Spanish.
Yeah.
If we're around Argentines in a public setting, yes, we try to speak Spanish. But if it's just us, no, we speak English. Yeah. Okay.
If you could say a little bit in Spanish, what would it sound like?
What would it sound like in Spanish?
Give me a little, few words in Spanish.
Yes.
Tell me I'm gonna understand it.
You won't understand it, but that's okay. But I will preempt it with the Argentine Spanish is a little bit different than most of the Spanish world because the Argentine Spanish has a little bit of Italian mixed into it.
I've been places where somebody was talking French and visiting, they get a phone call. I feel it's rude. You visit somebody and they, on the phone they're talking French.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And it's difficult to understand. Yeah, yeah.
I never took it in school.
And we, for that same reason, when we are out in public or when we have people over to the home, we want to speak in Spanish
Yes.
so that they understand what we're talking about. Yes, and I'll come back to you. Yeah.
Can you speak to the educational system and the unique
What was the second part?
and the unique use of the educational system?
We have made use of the educational system on the PE side, where we have, before COVID, we got the kids involved with yeah, it's kind of like a YMCA, but it's more public. It's not exactly school, but it's right close there. They have the school teachers that are administering the classes, and we got the kids involved with that. The educational system is different down there than up here, as you can imagine. A school day for them is 4 to 5 hours. It will happen from 6:50 to 11:50 in the morning, or from 12:50 to 6:50 in the afternoon, or even later, 7 o'clock up until 10:50 at night. And they have a rotation. And the students don't necessarily get a choice at which rotation they're going to be in. And so the same school will have 3 different class times in a day. In their first day of school, they show up and discover which one of those sets they're going to be in. They can put in a request, but that request isn't necessarily followed just because of the number of kids. And so they may end up in an afternoon, or they may end up in an evening time slot for their schooling. So, yeah. Yes?
From a ministry point of view, are you allowed to work within their school system to share the gospel or any kind of program like that?
We have not had that opportunity in the public school system. Where we have had opportunity is with the local fire department. As we have teams, work teams come down looking for opportunities to minister in the community. Somebody who up here volunteers at a local fire department. We had a fire chief came down one year, and we made request for him to teach class with the local firemen in Chivilcoy, and they were all over that. To have a fireman from the United States come down and to teach a class, that was a great opportunity. Yep. Mhm. Yes?
What's the source of the, you said that a lot of they're not teaching the truth of the Bible. What's the source of that message? Why are they so confused about the truth?
Pentecostalism plays on the emotions of people. They are looking for their own miracle. They are looking for a means of making them feel happy. From the leadership standpoint, oftentimes it comes down to money. We had our neighbor that we had invited to church, and he was an elderly man. We were bringing him to church for a time, and he shared with us that a local pastor had come by. A pastor came by his house, and he told him that he needs to give money to him because he wants to start a church in his neighborhood. And so you see that he's coming with this handout, extended hand to receive. And so it oftentimes it comes down to money, and it's a means of making money for many people. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Juan 3:16. Dios amó al mundo, por tanto que le ha dado su Hijo unigénito, para que todos los que creen en Él tengan vida eterna. That would be the Spanish, John 3:16. And my Spanish accent is very poor.
Sounds good to me. I don't even know what you said.
If I can get by in Spanish. If I say just a few words, I can get by, and they not know that I'm a foreigner. But if I say more than one sentence, they're going to peg me. And they ask if I'm from Brazil, if I'm from Germany. Our accents will never go away. We'll always have our English accents.
That can be learned in work with country you're here or there. You have to learn that.
It will always be a challenge because we've just gotten beyond the point where we can learn that. Oh yeah. So, yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Pastor.
James, we've had an excellent day. We appreciate the role that you and your family have played in that. If you all would love by your display. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.